Words for the children today come from another story written by Arthur Dobrin, who used to be the leader at the Long Island Ethical Society. And this is the book, Love Your Neighbor, and this is the story, Boris, Natasha, and the Giant Beet. Now, let me just ask you, do you guys like beets?
Yeah.
Yes? Thank you. You know, I looked at this story and I said, well, I like the story, but I have to know, I really don't like beets. So I have to kind of get myself up for this, you know? Okay. Natasha and her husband, Boris, love beets. Now, you should notice, Natasha and her husband are both ostriches. Very good birds. That's right. That's like we love beets, you know? They ate beets for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. Even for late night snacks, like I said, little veggie chips or something like that. The two ostriches love beets and more beets. One day they saw an advertisement in a gardening magazine. Look at this, Boris, Natasha said to her husband. There is a seed that will produce the largest and sweetest beet imaginable. Ooh, let's get it, Boris cried. So when the seed arrived, the husband and wife planted it carefully in their garden. As promised, the beet did grow bigger than any they had ever planted. Now take a look. You can see these little beets here, right? And there's the beet. Yeah, that's a big beet. My gosh, Boris shouted as he looked at the flourishing vegetable. This is the largest beet I've ever seen. My mouth is watering already. That's it. By the end of spring, the beet took up nearly half the garden. By summer, it had grown even bigger. And by autumn, Natasha decided that the beet was ready to harvest. So she went to the garden to pull it from the ground. She gave it a tug. And she pulled a little harder, and she pulled even harder, but that beet would not come loose. The thing about beets, you see, is that they kind of grow in the dirt. There it is, all buried, and she was having a very hard time of it. So Boris came out, and he put his muscle to it, and they pulled on it, and they clutched the whole vegetable, and they both dragged it together, and they had no luck whatsoever. This beet is laughing at us, Boris said, so they called their dog. Woody, would you help us pull this stubborn beet from the ground? Natasha asked the St. Bernard. Now, St. Bernards are big, right? Well, anyway, of course, Woody agreed. So Woody grabbed Natasha, who grabbed Boris, and the three of them pulled together. But the beet would still not move. This beet is still laughing at us, so she called Petrova. Will you please help us pull this beet from the ground? She asked her favorite cat. Petrova agreed. So Petrova held on to Woody, who held on to Natasha, who held on to Boris, and they all pulled. But that beet is still not moving. We'll never pull this from the ground. Well, let's see. How will we ever enjoy this scrumptious beet? Just then, Stanislaus the gerbil from next door came along. Now, gerbils, you might know, are not very big. They're like the size of a fairly good-sized mouse. Think of a healthy mouse, you got a gerbil size, right? So he came by. He says, what's going on here? And they said, well, we're having trouble getting this beet out of the ground. Would you help us? Do you really think that someone so small can make a difference? I don't know how much help I will be, the gerbil said, but I'm willing to give it a try. So Stanislaus grabbed Petrova, who grabbed Woody, who grabbed Natasha, who grabbed Boris. They pulled with all their might. They pulled harder, and they pulled, and then suddenly, the beet came out of the ground with a whoosh. Boris, Natasha, Woody, Petrova, and Stanislaus all got up from where they'd fallen. It was the largest, most fabulous, most wondrous beet anyone had ever seen. So there was a feast that night, for those who really liked beets. The family ate boiled beets and fried beets and mashed beets and drank juice made from crushed beets. But best of all, they enjoyed borscht, a sweet red soup made with beets, sour cream, and green onions. And here you can see their party. Looks like they made the borscht in the backbone. For days after they ate borscht, both hot and cold, they sat at the table telling tales of the sweetest, most delectable vegetable anyone had ever eaten. They spoke with smiles on their faces stained red from the juice of the one giant beet. Now, as with all of Arthur's stories, there's a question at the end, and it's this. Everyone has something to offer. How do you think everyone in this story helped? You want to ponder that? If anyone has ideas, I'm all ears. Otherwise, if you just want to ponder, that's okay too. Ponder it is. Thank you.